Hello everyone, I am Kenshin. Welcome to Speaking History. Today's historical mystery is The Face of God, the Veil of Manoppello. Please subscribe, like, comment, share, and turn on the notification bell. Thank you. Whether or not you are a Christian, you must have seen the image of Christ. But have you ever thought that what we see almost all have similar features, but no matter in the Bible, there is no mention of the face of Christ, and even in the 1st century, there is no image of him. Why are there such common points? Today we will explore the mystery of the face of God. Regarding the face of God, Kenshin first talks about the legend of the Shroud of Turin, that is not recognized by most historians. It is preserved in the royal chapel of the Savoy royal family in the main cathedral of Turin, Italy today. It is a piece of linen that is 4.4 meters long and 1.1 meters wide. There is a male face and a full body of linen on it. It is said to be the cloth that wraps Jesus's body, so it is printed with his face. The Bibles, Matthew, Mark, and Luke, mention that after Jesus's death, he was wrapped in fine linen and placed in a tomb, so Christians believe that it may be the shroud used after Jesus was crucified. The previous legend Kenshin did not mention much. Historical records show that it was brought back to France by a crusader, Geoffrey of Charny, when the city of Smyrna was destroyed. We all know that after the First Crusade, the Knights Templar in Jerusalem had a lot of relics. Of course, no one knows the truth. Originally, only a few people believed that this shroud was a relic of Jesus. But on May 28, 1898, when it was exhibited, Italian archaeological photographer Secondo Pia was allowed to take pictures and found that the image instantly attracted public attention. Skeptics believe that it is just a work of art, forged and painted in the Middle Ages, and even involves Da Vinci. To this day, opinions are still different and research is ongoing. Originally, the accelerator mass spectrometry technology for this cloth showed that it was between the 1260s and 1390s, and even the well-known carbon dating was similar, but opponents re-examined it as a product of the 1st century AD. Kenshin believes that the possibility of a delicacy is greater. Although Jesus is a Jew, the appearance inherited from the Semitic matriarchy is not special. Although the Jewish law prohibits adult men from shaving off the ends of their beards, and even the prophecy about Jesus's suffering in the Bible also mentions that he has a beard, but the image of the man in the shroud is hard to convince that he was less than 40 years old at the time of death. He has an old face, which is more convincing than any testing method, right? In fact, before 1200, the image of Jesus actually changed a lot, and it was not as close to today. Starting from the 2nd–3rd century AD, his portrait appeared in the places of Christian faith. The style is like a young Roman. The feature is that he has no beard and is a bit sturdy, and even has a spell-casting image. What's more, he is healing people with a magic wand in the image of Roman gods. Unexpectedly. But all these speculative images completely changed after the Veronica veil was exhibited in the Vatican in 1200. It is said to be a woven cloth that touched Jesus and left his face. The man on it has hair combed to both sides, thin beard, plus nose and mouth, becoming the purpose of artists and pilgrims. In addition to being evidence of God's face on earth, it has also become the basis for subsequent Christianity and works of art. For the lower-class people in medieval Europe with a very low literacy rate, having a visualized faith target is very important. This can be known from the many Bible story sculptures in many churches. For the Vatican, this is not only a relic, but more importantly, it brings more pilgrims, which means more income, such as selling indulgences in front of it, and there are even professions dedicated to painting saints. Even St. Peter's Basilica was rebuilt with these incomes. The central altar in the new church is located on St. Peter's tomb, with St. Andrew's head, a part of the true cross, the spear of destiny, and the veil on all sides. Let's talk about the spear of destiny another day. Well, friends will have questions. How does the veil have the name Veronica's veil? In fact, according to legend, when Christ was executed and nailed to the cross, when he walked up to the Gethsemane rock, there were many onlookers around, among which was a woman named Veronica. She took off the veil on her head and wiped the blood and sweat on Christ's face, but then a magical scene happened. Jesus's face was like being printed on this piece of cloth, and it has never been worn out since then. However, this story does not appear in any Bible chapter. But this veil brings not only legends but also confusion to later generations. How it came to Rome is unknown. It first appeared in the literature in 705 AD. At that time, Pope John VII even built a shrine for it. It was not until 1200 that it was officially permanently exhibited in St. Peter's Basilica. The news attracted thousands of people to come here for pilgrimage. Not only did it bring a lot of income to the court, but this face even gave birth to a profession, copying the portrait of Veronica's veil, but these replicas are considered to have the same spirituality and magic as the original. In terms of the Vatican, successive popes have used it to enhance their prestige, especially Pope Innocent III, the pope during the heyday of the Vatican's power. The most famous is the mobilization of troops to exterminate the Cathar sect in the name of heresy. He encouraged people to come to Rome for pilgrimage and sold indulgences, and even had exclusive religious holidays. The good times didn't last long. In 1527, Rome was invaded and looted by the army of the Holy Roman Empire, allowing Rome, which had been peaceful for 1,000 years, to be invaded again like the Goths invading the Roman Empire. According to records, many treasures disappeared. After that, the Vatican claimed that the veil was safe but no longer publicly displayed. On the few visible occasions, people can feel completely different from before, making people suspect that the original face of God has disappeared from the world. The writer and journalist Paul met the German art history professor and also a priest, Pfeiffer, at a dinner in Turin. He told Paul that the veil was not in the Vatican. When Paul refuted, he thought the location was in Italy. A small town named Manoppello. At that time Paul doubted and didn't care much about it. However, a few months later, this meeting changed him. At that time, he and his daughter were traveling on the Adriatic coast. Out of curiosity, they drove to Manoppello to go to the local church to take a look. This look was surprised. The face on it was so clear and the material of the cloth was surprisingly exquisite. From some angles, it was even invisible, which aroused his curiosity. 2 years later, he returned to Rome and met Pfeiffer at the lecture by chance. He got more information from this important Christian art historian, and more affirmatively told everyone that Manoppello was the real location of the veil. For this reason, he wanted to write a book to convey this fact. The problem is that he needs to find enough evidence to support his ideas. In the end, after many efforts, he was able to meet with Arnold, the director of the Vatican Museum. After showing various photos, he wanted to hear his thoughts on the Veil of Manoppello, but standing on the opposite side of Pfeiffer naturally did not believe it, and even refused to let Paul see the veil collected by the Vatican. What is frustrating is that there is no documentary record of when this veil came here. Paul then assumed that it happened during the fall of Rome. The commander of the Castel Sant'Angelo at the time owned property in Manoppello, which made him feel that things were justified. However, the local legend is that the angel brought the veil here, but the time was before the fall of Rome, which was contradictory. 3 years after the completion of St. Peter's Basilica, Pope Urban VIII ordered the veil to stop being displayed, banned all acts of copying the veil, and even burned existing replicas. Violators would be excommunicated, as if to keep some secrets and try to erase it from the memory of believers. Paul found that the angel story happened during the period of burning replicas, thinking that the story was to cover up the truth that the veil was brought out from Rome. When people's memories disappeared, the Vatican exhibited a veil that was completely different from before, which explained some facts, and even found evidence from the fact that Christ's face in artworks was vastly different from before. Later, he saw the frame that originally contained the veil in the St. Peter's Museum. Here he found a clue: only transparent things need such a frame. In addition, there are glass fragments on the Veil of Manoppello. Everything seems to be put together. There is another question. Veronica does not exist in the Bible. Where does it come from? Scholars believe that it is a virtual character created by a typo. The reason is the Latin real icon, vera icon, which refers not to a woman, but the name of this portrait. However, the material of the Veil of Manoppello is not like hemp or other fabrics. Later, it was found to be a precious fabric called sea silk. The material comes from the silk on the large shells of the Mediterranean Sea, showing its preciousness and also being used in the era when Christ was in the world. He asked the last lady in the world to make sea silk, proving that Manoppello is this material. The problem came again: this material cannot be used to make faces by painting, so he went back to the Bible to find the answer. At that time, the burial required not only cloth to wrap the body, but also a cloth to cover the face. When everyone went back, the body was already gone, only the shroud and the veil were left. This is the Bible record. In the end, Paul sent all the evidence he had collected to John Paul II, and many favorable people in the Vatican also saw it. In 2005, Paul had an extraordinary opportunity to see the Vatican veil, but he was forbidden to take any photos. The action behind it was likely to be unwilling to publicly admit to the believers the fact that the veil had been lost. But in Paul's eyes, there is another reason for not wanting to admit: money. Through the pilgrimage of believers, the Vatican can have a steady income. Of course, many people sneer at this, thinking it is baseless rumors. Benedict XVI, who succeeded John Paul, became the first pope to see the Veil of Manoppello in 2006. The story is here. Everyone has their own understanding. Do you think the Veil of Manoppello is the real face of Christ, or neither? If you can leave your opinion and share it with me, whether or not you support Paul's point of view. Welcome to listen to Kenshin History Square again today. Welcome to share your views with me. Thank you. See you next time.